Alright guys, this is my 1988 Ford Bronco 2. Nicknamed the Little Nuge. The paint job is inspired after Ted Nugent and his full-size Bronco. This is a home-done paint job. It is basically just tractor paint and Rust-Oleum for the stripes. The tractor paint's the white, rolled on the white, and then brushed in the stripes. This Bronco started out completely stock with the 2.9 liter V6 and the A4LD automatic transmission. I picked it up about 4 years ago now for about $300. I'll post a picture in this video of what it looked like and what this looks like now. It's come a long way since then. The first modification I did, me and a buddy did, was I did a solid swap, axle swap. I put a Dana 44 full width axle out of a 79 Bronco and a Ford 9-inch axle out of the same Bronco. Well, actually that's a replacement axle now since I've done the swap originally. The original axle had a bad day. The pinion came in contact with the third member, and as you can see right there, cracked the third member carrier support bearing, and I had a mini spool inside the stock carrier that grenaded. I'll post the pictures as well. And it caused my rear axle to lock up, and it wasn't fun. I was actually on the street when that happened, just right down the road from my house. This is a strictly off-road view. So that is a new third member and new axles, because the old axles got chewed up a little bit on the spline, and so I decided to replace those and the third member. But my gears were salvaged, and the actual housing itself was salvaged. There's the back where you can clearly see the Little Nuge decal. So in the front axle, about 3 years ago, I did a complete rebuild of it. All new bearings and seals and everything. I cleaned it up, painted it. It was basically a brand new axle, new ball joints. I did re-gear it when I did the rebuild. I put 5.38 to 1 gears in it. And then the 9-inch, I did the same thing, rebuild with all new bearings and seals and everything else, but when then I put in there was 5.42. Now, that is less than 1% difference, so there's no binding, but I'm off-road, and I don't have to really worry about too much binding. So we did the swap with that. I used stock 1979 F-150 or Bronco coil buckets, and I used James Duff 5109. These are the 5.5-inch progressive rate springs, and those are the James Duff auto adjusting 70/30 shocks in the stock mounting location down there. And the shock towers are off of a F250. I believe it's 80s and maybe early 90s F250 shock tower, bolted straight to the frame. Lines up perfect with those tabs. The shock towers, or the spring towers themselves, spaced, I don't know if you can see that, spaced about 2 inches off the frame, and that gave it the perfect width for the stock retainers on the axle itself. That was spacing was done on both sides at the time of the swap. So all the original TTB suspension components were cut off the frame. The frame was cleaned up, and I basically used C-channel, 2 pieces of C-channel right next to each other, welded to the frame, drilled holes, and then bolted those buckets to the frame. The track bar mount is from a 1978-1979 Bronco F-150 for a 6-inch lift, and I used a 1x1 tube to space it off the frame, and cut and sleeved the track bar to length, and that worked out perfect with the poly bushings. And I haven't had any issues out of that, other than I did have some welds break the last trip on this side, so I have this plate now, and that tube's welded to the plate, and those bolts go through the frame into the steering box. I plan to rework that area a little bit better. I think my steering box is having some issues, so I will be replacing that or rebuilding that, working on my steering because it's a little clunky now. As far as recent upgrades, the Dana 44, I just put in Bronco Graveyard's chromoly axles, inner and outer axles with Spicer U-joints. Though the last trip out, or 2 trips ago, I'm sorry, I did have my inner shear. Here is what's left of the inner on the axle shaft. That sheared and left me basically with 2-wheel drive in the rear, but luckily I am now full spooled in the rear, so besides that mini spool, so I didn't have any issue getting back to camp, getting on the trailer, nothing like that. It was fine. So I went ahead and upgraded to the chromolys. What probably didn't help me is my front axle. I think last winter, I put in a Detroit locker up front, so now I am fully locked on all 4 corners with the 9-inch and the 44, and with the 5.38, 5.42 gears, she moves slow, which is good for what I do. She will still spin them, she'll still get the tires up moving, but I love the gearing. I wouldn't ask for anything else. The tires are brand new as of spring this year. They are 38-inch Super Swamper TSL SX on 15-inch rims. Those are 15x10 rims. They are 12-inch wide. It's got a good stance to it. It sticks out well enough. That's why the body has been protected for so long, because it sticks out so well. So very pleased with the performance of these tires. Before that, I had some nasty dry rotted Super Swampers, but they weren't the TSLs, they were original ones, and they were more like balloon tires because they were 15-inch wide. But those are long gone. This is what's on there now, and I have warranty on them for a good while. So, well, we'll check out the engine and transmission info here soon. Alright, as you can see, I got the hood up now. I'd like to talk to you about the engine and transmission. I guess I'll show you the inside first. It's pretty ugly. There's the stock dash there. Stock seats. It's Eddie Bauer. Put a seat cover on there so in case this one gets a little wet. I don't get wet, but I've basically gutted the interior I've got a cooler and a box and for tow straps and parts and tools and stuff, but I've gutted the interior. There's nothing left back here. The door panels, everything basically up front except for the carpet. I just screwed down some mats down here for a little bit of traction, but go Colts. Gauges did work, and I'll explain why they don't work now. The fuel gauge is the only one that I pay attention to now. That's the only one that actually still works. Everything else doesn't work. The tach still moves, but the body, I mean, it's rusty. It's got some holes in it. It's got rusty holes up under here. When I cut the fenders, I tried to push the buckets up, or the wheel wells up as much as I could for clearance, but you can see it's lifted up here and pinched it right there. That's that paint flaking off. So it's got its issues, but I have big plans for the rear end of this. The body mounts are complete trash. If I go on the other side, you'll see why. Alright, last trip out, I popped this body mount. Bolt sticking lip here, popped this coverway off. I was told by a buddy that was following me that my frame and my body was separated by a couple feet, so that's not good. I got plans for that. That's a nice secure way to keep your extinguisher. Sad thing is, I've already had to use one extinguisher because of an incident. Hope I don't have to use it ever again. That was not a fun day. I used rock lights for my interior lights. They are bright at night when you're out trail riding. Perfect though when you're trying to find some stuff or work on stuff. Mounted a CB up in the ceiling. We all use CBs to communicate. Got gauge sets down here for my oil pressure, water temp. I got volts over here. The amp meter is not hooked up, and I don't plan for it to be hooked up. Have it set up as push button only. I have my fuel on a hot wire switch, and it runs off the stock. Sometimes my relay gets hot or something like that, and that relay will shut off, so I'll just flip that switch on if I ever lose fuel pressure, and everything's cool. That's my front light bar. I have my low fan on ignition, and then that switch will turn on my high fan. I'll show you my fan setup soon. And in rear, just my LED cube for rear. That's basically it for the interior. Same thing over here. Screwed down some mats. Go Colts. That's a B&M shifter, and that is it's actually my four-wheel drive shifter, but it's a Hurst. I don't know if you can see that. It's actually a Hurst shifter. It's pretty cool. Not a lot of those have Hurst shifters. So the axle swap was the first thing I did, like I talked about a little bit ago. The tires have changed a few times over the years, and then now I've set with these, and these shall last me for a while. As I said previously, my engine when I first got this was a 2.9 liter V6 with the A4LD. Well, the A4LD didn't work, so what I do, I swapped that out for a M5OD. I ran that M5OD for about 3 years or so. That M5OD did great. The 2.9 did great, especially with that gearing. I had a 1356 B&M Transfercase on the back, and it was great. I was still running 38-inch tires, still running 5.38 gears. No problems with that. V6 started acting a little funny. It was tired. It just didn't seem to have the oomph that it did before. Now, this Bronco, when I got it, originally had 80,000 miles on it, but And it looks like it had 180,000, but that's by title. It showed 80,000 by the rust. But you know, it is what it is. I'm in Indiana, and you're gonna get that, especially with the salt around here. But this one doesn't see the road anymore unless it's up and down my county road. So what I did last winter, I got tired of that V6. I got tired of the lack of power, so what I did was I swapped in a 5.0 liter Mustang engine. It is out of a 87 Mustang. I didn't do a full rebuild on it. I actually purchased a Ranger that had the V8 swap already done. So I was like, cool, has most of the parts I need. I'll just use those parts, kind of look and see what they did. They swap it and pull it out, clean it up. The engine was red and yellow before. I pulled it out and I painted it blue with black, and it looks a lot better. Now obviously it's muddy now, but as you can see in the pictures, it looked pretty good when I dropped it in there. But you know, a season of wheeling, it gets dirty. I got some shorty block hugger headers on it. The internals on the engine are stock as far as I know. I don't think there's anything upgrade with those. It does have a spacer on between the upper and lower manifold. They say that helps with heat transfer and whatever else. And it's kind of a pain to get the gaskets lined up with it, but I left it in there just because it gives me a little bit more room to get my hands underneath there in case I gotta mess around with an injector or something. Anyways, in that Ranger, I bought that Ranger for $400. The guy said a fuel pump was out in it, and well, that's what was right. A fuel pump was out. I had the spare tank laying around out of an F-150. Got fuel pressure to it. She ran. Timing was way off. Ran like crap. Finally got it to run pretty good. I said, okay, this is my engine. So I yanked it out. And cleaned it up, painted it, put new parts on it, lots of new parts. One of the first things I wanted to do was I wanted to put a Saginaw pump on it because they have higher pressures, they don't squeal like the whine like the standard Ford pumps do this era. So what I did was, that is actually a mount out of a 90s E150 250 van with the 4.9 or 5.0 engine in it. Originally came out of a V-belt. I swapped over to a serpentine belt, and then I had to build this little bracket here to kick out my mount. It was going to hit the frame member of the frame down there if I left it in its original stock position. So I had to actually rotate it out to get this above my frame rail, and my belt situation still worked out. I have my AC delete pulley here on the standard stock Ford mount. That's the standard stock Ford mount. This is actually the pump that came on this mount from the junkyard. I rebuilt it completely, but I didn't paint the case up. I just left it as is and threw it on there. I got MSD ignition coil. Supposedly supposed to have a hotter spark. It works pretty well. It's a brand new distributor. My old one got magnetized and died on me, so I went and bought me a brand new one. Brand new wires, brand new plugs, brand new water pump, brand new timing cover, new gaskets all throughout. That's a used tensioner out of the junkyard, and then I got a brand new 3G alternator out from I think Advance Auto, and wired that up. I use a Rural King battery with, I think this had, yep, there's the part number and everything. It fits perfectly in the stock tray. It sits just perfect inside there, and it doesn't go anywhere with this kind of tie down. I think this tie down came from Rural King. Doesn't go anywhere. I'd recommend it for any vehicle, even if you were just running on the street, for this Gen 1 Ranger Bronco 2. Great battery, great amps. Another thing I did was I did a mass airflow conversion. Since this was an 88, this was pre-mass airflow, so it was speed density. I got a mass airflow sensor from a 91 Mustang, and then I got the wiring out of the junkyard, wired it up, ran my wires to the computer. I did my whole entire standalone harness myself. Some of it was pretty easy, some of it was a little bit difficult, but a little bit of time, you can figure it out. And then I got the Mustang Computer as well. I think it was A9L was my computer code. I'll verify that. Other than that, my radiator is out of a 4.0 Explorer, the heavy duty radiator that everybody swaps in with the 4.9s. I run that radiator. It does just fine on the trails. And what I did was I took a dual fan from a Ford Contour. It has to be the V6 Ford Contour. Wired that up so the highs or low comes on with ignition, high comes on with switch, and it fits just about perfect in between there. You have a little bit of space here, same on the other side, and it sticks down below the bottom of the radiator about that much. And if we go down there and look, what I did, I just put a piece of angle, welded it to the bottom of my custom cross member for my radiator, because you have to cut out I had to cut out for because it was rusty and it was falling apart. I cut that original one out and I put in this cross member out of the C-channel with pieces of pipe and my bushings for the radiator to sit in. It protects it a little bit better, it's a little bit stronger, it helps brace the frame. I put that angle on the bottom. I think it's a 2x2. It sticks down just as much as the fan does, and I just put some self-tappers through the fan. Works perfect. There's your clearance. It's very tight, but it works. The fuel filter relocation, I put it on that side, ran my hoses down, and up to the fuel relocation. I use a standard flex hose for my bottom mount. Excuse me. And then that's the dual sump oil pan. It's kind of hard to tell, but that's what that one is, the dual sump oil pan. So what I did for the transmission was I actually used the same transmission that came in the Ranger that I just told you about. That is a C4 automatic transmission with a B&M 1350 case, and it actually bolted right up to my same exact shafts that I used when I had the 2.9 and M50D transmission. Got super lucky there. Didn't have to change anything. Well, getting to the point of, or getting to everything else I'm planning on doing for this last trip out. Well, looks like I'm missing something there, doesn't it? Yep. I had a bad day. Didn't break the U-joints. Didn't break my welds on my drive shaft. Yeah, they're not the best welds, but hey, they held. T-Case didn't. Who wins? My welds. So, that brings up everything that I'm going to do. And we'll get to that here in a minute. Alright, so, we talked about everything you need to know about the engine, the axles, the transmission, everything up to now. What broke, transfer case broke. Fun day. I already fixed the stock axles in the 44 with the Chromolys with lifetime warranty. I rebuilt the 9-inch, so my pinion bearing ought to be okay because I have a full spool instead of a mini spool, so the mini spool doesn't grenade and lock up my axle and break my pinion, break my third member. I mean, that didn't break my pinion, it broke my third member. So, 9-inch should be good, 44 should be good. Weak point now is the transmission. Engine is strong, engine runs great. Transmission, I've had a lot of problems with the transmission in the last few trips. With it slipping out of gear on those those hills. Yeah, it leaks some fluid, but I don't think it was enough to get low on fluid, because I made sure I checked it every few basically minutes or hours. I'd check it and add a little bit here and there. It wasn't like it was pouring out, but it would drip it. Whatever. Here nor there. It's done. I'm done with it. I don't want an automatic anymore. I'm going back to a manual. So, I'm going to be ripping out that C4, taking out that shifter, taking all that shifting is going to come out. That's why I got a brand new floor pan over there, or tranny tunnel cover, which is going to take place of that. So, because that one's all butchered, because the C4 is the third transmission that's been in this Bronco. So what I'm getting ready to do, excuse me, I'm getting ready to put in this. This is a T18 NP205 out of a 70s, late 70s F-150. It came with a standard bell housing for a clutch cable. That wouldn't work in my situation because of the way the Bronco 2 and Ranger set up. It's a hydraulic setup, so I needed to find a hydraulic housing. Well, luckily, I got my hands on this hydraulic housing that has the mount, everything right there for my slave cylinder. I'll have a new slave this week. I have all my parts this week. New clutch, new flywheel, new slave cylinder, my master cylinder. I'm using the old one that was in there before. It all bolts up the same. This is the stock one, stock reservoir. I'll have a brand new line, custom line with new fittings, with a braided line, going to a new fitting to the slave. It's all Ford clutch cylinders all use the same fitting. I think I bought those fittings off of Summit along with the braided hose. It's 30-inch braided hose for like $12.99. It was a great deal, pre-made, with -3 AN. All right, so T18 is known for its granny gear. That first gear is super low, super crawl, and the NP205 damn near bulletproof. Pretty excited to get this up in there. Excited to get back to a manual. I'll clean this one up a little bit, but I took a look inside. Everything looks good. Everything feels good. The small block housing bolts up right to my 5.0. Won't be a problem there. So I'll have a new throwout bearing. All new external parts on this transmission. I will have to build new drive shafts, which I want to go beefier on my drive shafts, because once I update this, then that's going to be my next weak point, is my drive shafts, because those drive shafts were built when I had the V6 in there, so I'm lucky I haven't twisted one up into a bind already. So next project is to drop the transmission out of there and put transmission number 4 in there. Alrighty. Exciting stuff. It sucks I have to do it again, but these trannies are pretty bulletproof. The transfer case is pretty bulletproof. I should be pretty set. I'm not running high horsepower. I'm pretty close to stock. Yeah, I have headers. Yeah, I have the MSD. Yeah, there's the computer is a little, with the mass airflow, I get a little bit more power out of that, but nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. So I will begin to pull that, and we'll slap that in there, get her done. Should be fun. Stick around.